Hello, welcome to another Takeda episode of The Eternal Law. On the last Takeda episode we saw the Anagikoji clan be finished off by the forces commanded by Takeda Nobushige. Then Shingen led an army into Suruga to besiege the Tokugawa force at Senpu Castle. The Tokugawa brought up reinforcements and then sallied out of the castle to challenge Shingen in a field battle. However, he had a huge hidden reinforcement army. Those reinforcements came in and engaged in a large cavalry melee with the Tokugawa forces. However, it was not enough to break up the Takeda formation, and once they advanced into the Tokugawa lines, the Tokugawa were destroyed, were forced to fall back, the castle fell. Then the Iko-Iki invited the Takeda to go to war with Hatakeyama. Let's see how that war goes. It is unfortunate that we have discovered these people in a time of great change. The circumstances for a fruitful trade agreement simply are not present. However, I believe that once this war is over, Japan has the potential for economic might. There is just one thing. Central Japan is currently controlled by a powerful peasant coalition. If they assume complete power, then it is highly unlikely we will be able to secure favourable deals. Better to deal with the samurai lords who understand true power. We must make sure that the samurai retain their control. So we return to the Takeda in the spring of 1554. Here we can see Shingen's army and Yamadera's reinforcement army supporting him, stationed in Suruga and poised to attack the next Tokugawa stronghold up the road, waiting to see what happens. We can see the Tokugawa are still besieging our main trade port with a fleet which is too large for us to sally out against, so we're losing money there and can really do with doing something about it. Nobukado remains in the defense of North Shinano against any surprise incursions, perhaps coming from our allies the Iko-Iki or the Yamanouchi, or even the Date, who are much more likely to be coming down from up in Echigo. Here are our new enemies in Noto, the Hatakeyama. They have a small force stationed here. It appears that the province has suffered some damage from war. I think they're being besieged by a naval fleet on the west side of the peninsula. But regardless, I have joined the war with the Hatakeyama in support of the Iko-Iki, and to fully exploit this I need to be the one who takes Noto from them. So I'm sending Nobushige up with the forces that he used to take Etchu, and going right up to the castle and beginning a siege. Now, from the beginning you can see there's a Honma army stationed on the beaches who are able to support us in any assaults that we make on the castle, and this gives us a definitive advantage, which means I could have assaulted the castle right away, but I was in no particular hurry because Noto is not a valuable province to have. I was willing to besiege them to reduce the enemy strength a little bit further and see what the Iko-Iki do in regards to their war with the Hatakeyama. So that siege is going to continue for now. Back down south, it was time to decide what to do with Shingen's forces, now that we've reached the next turn. It is the summer of 1554. You can see we have some intelligence on the Tokugawa lands because the Yamanouchi Metsuge came up and investigated, so we know that the Tokugawa have only a small standing army on the other side of that river over there, which means we're free to advance a very great distance into the Tokugawa lands without being challenged, unless of course they have ambushes for us along the road, but fortunately they did not, so Shingen and Yamadera are going to move up to deal with that. You can see there's also a Tokugawa Metsuge here. I had a Metsuge nearby, so I tried to go and apprehend him, but it failed. The Tokugawa unfortunately have a special bonus in their clan which makes their Metsuge much more powerful. So it's harder to get rid of Tokugawa Metsuge, and it's more likely they will wreak havoc with your troops. So a bit annoying having that guy in our back lines. But we can solve this problem easily by just pushing forward and beginning to engage with the Tokugawa forces. Shingen manages to get across the bridge because the enemy forces just fall back as they see him approach. They're not willing to defend the bridgehead. And so Shingen can go and begin the siege on the castle at Totoimi. Now I could have assaulted again here, but I wanted to wait a turn so that I could bring up Yamadera's reinforcement group, just so that I have a definitive force advantage. In fact, I'll probably have so much of an advantage I'll be able to auto-resolve once Yamadera's group gets up, so we'll see that in a moment. So back up here at Noto, you can see the Honma army has moved a little bit closer to support the siege, and the siege is continuing. The enemy has suffered a bit of attrition inside the castle because we're cutting off their supplies. However, there was still plenty of scope to just continue the siege. There was no rush to take that castle, so I'm continuing it for another turn. So here we go in the end turn sequence. The Tokugawa, they move Metsuge's about to begin with, and then they move reinforcements up to support Totomi. So now it looks like another battle between Shingen and the Tokugawa joint army is going to take place, this time over the fate of Totomi rather than Suruga. We have a slight disadvantage according to the balance of power. I could retreat and then wait for Yamadera's group to get closer and then try to do the attack again. However, I thought that Shingen would probably be able to win this battle given his past record and the fact that our troops are rather elite. So let's head in and see how he does. What a grand sight. Tell the rest to come and see. The Takeda army approaches. And there, yes, the banner reads Takeda Shingen. The great lord himself has come to bring us freedom. Oh come now, what are they really going to do for us? To me they look like a river of blood snaking down the road. That is certainly all they'll bring to our lands. What do you know? Have you even met a subject of Takeda? Lord Shingen, we wish you all fortune for the coming battle! So here we are on the battlefield. You can see the Takeda army is immediately performing some crazy reforming as the battle begins, because I noticed there was a hill just outside of my deployment area, and I wanted to take the advantage of this hill by quickly moving the army across before any Tokugawa forces arrive, just so I have a superior position. Here is the first Tokugawa army we're going to have to deal with. It's quite small, mainly made up of cavalry and anti-cavalry units. The main bulk of their force is still entering the battlefield. They have a whole bunch of heavy cavalry, as well as a mix of light and heavy infantry, but they're going to be walking quite slowly, so it'll take them a while to reach the battlefront. So for the first part of the battle, all we have to think about is the initial Tokugawa army. They moved up with their archers on the front ranks. Those archers are going to come within range of our formation, and now they're going to provide some covering fire with their flaming arrows to allow the rest of their forces to charge up. They're sending in various forces. There's some Nodaichi samurai, some Naginata pirates, I think some Yari pirates in there as well. So not a terribly steadfast force. A lot of them have variable morale, which means it'll be easier to make them retreat. Here's the main problem: these Nodaichi samurai, they'll be able to cut through our ranks if they get a good charge. They are going to have to charge slightly uphill, which is the good news. They're currently charging towards these archers, so they're going to have to get out of the way or they'll be destroyed. However, they wanted to stick around to give them a final volley. So we took down about a third of the enemy's Nodaichi samurai before they even arrived at the line. The archers run away, well, except a couple of them who for some reason decide to stand their ground. And then some Yari samurai move forward to try and block the Nodaichi samurai. However, those Yari samurai are going to be at a disadvantage, so I'm going to need to support them soon. The rest of the enemy forces begin to engage with hidden long Yari Ashigaru, which I had hiding in the center of my formation. And because they were hiding, the enemy decided to send cavalry up. They didn't realize it would be such a big problem. I think the cavalry were going for Shingen, but now those cavalry are going to be destroyed by that sneaky long Yari Ashigaru ambush. Right out on the flank, the enemy's cavalry were coming around, perhaps to encircle to the rear. However, hidden in these bushes was a whole bunch of Yari Ashigaru and some Takeda cavalry who were able to intercept them, and those Tokugawa cavalrymen are going to be destroyed by this ambush because they're all at a disadvantage, really. Now here you can see I had some more hidden cavalry which now break from cover. They go into a column formation to be able to avoid the ambush going on to their left. It's a bunch of heavy katana cavalry, and they're charging right towards the enemy general who was coming in with the cavalry on the enemy's rear attack. However, he got caught up by some Naginata samurai that had charged out to block him. So now he's in trouble. He's being attacked from two sides by heavy units. The enemy general won't last long in this situation. Back up in the center, you can see I'm folding the center around because the enemy have really focused their attack on the center left from their perspective of my line. So I was able to fold around and surround them. As a result, they seem not to be willing to hold on in this fight for their reinforcements to arrive, and they run off. So we've essentially defeated the first Tokugawa army well before the main force could arrive. So it looks like the enemy made a blunder thinking they could distract us with their first force before the second one managed to get up to the battlefront. In fact, I had enough time to completely reform my army before the enemy's extra forces arrived. I was reforming to better suit the angle of approach that the enemy forces were coming from. Shingen himself is taking up a stand and fight formation at the back of the line. This is where him and his bodyguards dismount from their horses and fight to the death. This inspires the local troops to have high morale and higher attack values. Some of the enemy cavalry are marauding around in front of our lines, but they're going to run off when they realise that they're wasting their time. Here's some Naginata Samurai, which are quite far from the line, are rushing to get back in formation. They're going to be pretty tired, so hopefully they won't have to bear too much of the fighting in the upcoming engagement. The enemy are beginning their attack very poorly by sending their Yari Ashigaru straight uphill towards the center of my line, perhaps again enticed by the chance to attack Shingen, not realizing I now have two lines hidden in front of him. They're going to pop out and destroy these men once they get too close. They're doing a similar thing on my right flank, sending in Yari Ashigaru. Perhaps sensible because it soaks up my arrow fire from their more valuable units, but these two units have essentially been wasted. The enemy blast us with flaming arrows. They had about 3 units of archers back there, and they seem to focus on one particular part of my line, so I take quite a lot of casualties from those archers. The Yari Ashigaru reached my hidden troops, however my long Yari Ashigaru wall was glitching out. They were for some reason all facing to their left rather than facing forwards. I'm not sure why, but it meant that the enemy were able to break through the spear wall immediately. However, you can see they don't really desire to fight very long. They sort of just exchange a few blows and then run away, so I think these enemy units are demoralized and are not willing to fight. Here the enemy are really piling in on my right flank. You can see I've moved out some Katana Samurai from my right flank to engage with their Naginata pirates. Those Naginata pirates are going to be quite weak against the heavy Katana Samurai, and you can see my men are cutting the enemy down left, right and centre. Plus they're beginning to be surrounded, simply because they actually have a numerical disadvantage at this point. My left flank is currently folding around the enemy's centre as well, so their centre is going to be demoralised and fall back. It's only their right flank which stands a chance, and you can see the Ashigaru troops on their right, on our right flank, are falling back, leaving only the enemy samurai to deal with. Although of course they do still have these archers out here who are actually harassing my troops a fair bit, doing some real damage against my very stationary formation. However, I was able to get some fire cavalry behind their ranks. The fire cav absolutely annihilate the enemy forces, coming in, destroying their formation, and it causes a complete rout amongst their archer group. And as the archers fall back, all those samurai remaining fighting at the front line decide to fall back as well. So a huge rout ensues. The Tokugawa army is going to be destroyed as it attempts to retreat from the Takeda's position on the hill. It's a decisive victory for the Takeda. This means that the Tokugawa no longer have any kind of main force, no large army defending any of their territory. So Totoimi is going to fall immediately, and then Mikawa is surely destined to fall after that. Let's head back to the strategy map. It was inevitable, friends. You all saw how the Tokugawa lashed at us like desperate hounds. No order, no strategy, just the last struggle of an army defeated even before it reached the battle. And now the way is clear for us to make all the fine Tokugawa lands our own. I hear they have some finely bred horses in these parts, but from what I have seen in combat they are no better than starved mules. You can all hold your heads high in this age, as you are men of the victorious Takeda army, and shall be remembered as true samurai for all history. And now, let us drink! So here's the battle report. We lost a few hundred men. We actually lost a whole unit of some Ashigaru cavalry. Not really so much of a price to pay, because the enemy lost thousands of troops, and of course they're going to be losing the province as well. So overall, a satisfactory performance from Shingen's mighty army. So we take the province in this end turn sequence because not enough enemy troops remained to continue the siege, which is good news. Now once the end turn sequence was over, I got this message asking if I wanted to engage in some Nanban trade. It seems that some Christian nations are offering to set up trade links with my clan. Only the downside is that those guys are going to have free reign to spread Christianity in any provinces with which they are trading. So it's a trade-off, because I can trade with them, get access to their matchlock weaponry and get more money, or I can ignore them and leave my inner territory safe from Christian rebellion. So you can see I decided not to trade with them because I wanted to keep the integrity of my Buddhist population as firm as possible. Plus, I don't think the Takeda really need matchlock weaponry at this point in the campaign. We're focusing on cavalry and heavy infantry, so matchlocks would be a real change of tact, which at this point we don't need. Of course, later on, perhaps we can still go back and begin to trade with them. You get more than one opportunity to open up trade. Anyway, you can see I've now got my eyes set on Mikawa. I've moved Yamadera's reinforcement group up into a position from where it should be able to strike at Mikawa. Shingen's army in the castle at Totoimi is already ready to strike. I just have to arrange it such that Totoimi remains in a a state of high public order. Since they've only just been occupied by the Takeda, it is very possible that they could stage an insurrection. So I'm sending a few troops back just to watch over things, but they're actually quite loyal to the Takeda even from the beginning, so it seems they weren't too bothered about being taken over. I move Shingen up to begin the siege, and now I'm going to move Yamadera's group up to support him, and with him in the vicinity we now have a huge advantage over the remaining Tokugawa defenders, which are all just garrison units. You can see the balance of force bar there is really in our favour, so I'm just going to auto-resolve this final battle with the Tokugawa. And there we go, very light losses. Yamadera ranks up to level 2, more good news. And the castle at Mikawa has been taken. The Tokugawa clan has been completely destroyed. I'm going to repair the castle. It's actually a very high level fortress they have here, which is quite nice to have captured. We now have an extra border with the Iko-Iki there as well. Before I look at that, let's level Yamadera up. I'm picking a retainer, which I think there increases the melee attack of his units. And as for his personal development, I'm focusing on the strategist side of things, because I think that's just the most useful. So as I said, we do now have another border with the Iko-Iki. That means there are now 3 places they could attack us if they decided to betray their alliance. And I'm suspicious that they will, because they're so powerful that it would be in their advantage to betray us. But we'll see, because up here the Iko-Iki are actually helping us. You can see they've sent an army to support our siege against the Hatakeyama at Noto. So now we actually have a massive advantage in this siege situation as well. So after a struggle trying to select Nobushige's army, I decided to begin the assault, and you can see we have a massive power advantage yet again. So once again I'm going to auto-resolve the fight. And the Hatakeyama forces go down quite easy. Nobushige's army takes the majority of the losses, which I guess makes sense since we were leading the attack and we'll be getting the spoils of victory, so it's only fair. And there we go, Noto has been captured. That means the Hatakeyama only have a single province left, and it's quite far away. It's up in the northeast end of Japan, so it's unlikely they'll come and try and take this one back. So I think it's a very safe capture. The province itself is quite useful. It has a big Buddhist monastery, which is in a good position to counter any Iko-Iki influences coming from the west. The Honma, who were helping me, appear to have disappeared. They have a large fleet nearby. Here's their home province. It's on an island with a gold mine. Definitely something worth thinking about taking. A most strange dinner. The leaders of the Iki forces seem quite at home in the castle. I think they haven't truly shaken off their samurai roots. But it was our guests, the Honma officers, who caused a stir. Aside from being ungrateful for our offer, they were rude and blunt throughout the evening, never raising a toast to our victory or the fallen troops. It is obvious that they, although pleased to see their enemy lose a castle, are bitter that it was not they who took up residence in it afterwards. Many of the things they said suggested to me that they will not let this issue go unsettled. Now, very interestingly, as that turn ended, the Honma decided to declare war on us. It can only have been for some sort of bitter regret that they didn't capture Noto, and we did. Very strange. Of course, I have to accept I have no choice but to go to war with them now, but I can ask my allies to help me out.
The time for meaningless talk is done. The time for action is upon us. War has come.
So the Honma have declared war, and they immediately take action. Quite dishonourable of them, actually. They land forces down at Etchu. I have the opportunity to intercept. Basically, I can send the tiny standing army I have in Etchu down onto the beach to try and stop them making landfall from their ships. However, that would just be a suicide mission because I have 3 units against their 20. So I decided to turn that kind offer to intercept down for now. Although, of course, as a result, they just take a few steps forward and begin sieging the castle. Now I have a few more men because the garrison troops appear, so I have a small army to resist. However, that army is still far weaker than the enemy's, so we're going to have to pull something really good to win this one. So here is the huge empty castle without enough troops to really defend it. I have to abandon the 2 outer sections of the castle immediately and just focus my defense on the inner sanctum, otherwise I'll be too spread out. You can see I'm moving my cavalry out of the castle to begin the only possible tactic that can allow me to win here, which is distracting the enemy forces from attacking the castle itself. So out on the east side, the enemy had some bow ashigaru completely cut off from the rest of their men, so I used my general's fire cavalry to come down and destroy them. The enemy were attacking across all parts of the castle except the north side, so no particular focus in terms of their strength. This was helpful because it allowed my cavalry to move about outside the castle without having a risk of encountering any huge enemy forces. You can see what I'm doing here. I've got my katana cavalry and I'm sort of sneaking them through these groups of enemies, and the enemy units are going to try and turn off from their attack on the castle to chase those cavalrymen. So you can see I've distracted a whole set of the enemy's forces away from the castle and towards my men, so that's going to ease up things on the defenders inside. However, they have so many men and they're so spread out I can't do it to all of them, so they have begun their assault. Here you can see they're just about reaching the inner sanctum, and I'm moving my men to intercept them. It's so far from my reserve position to the wall that they actually managed to get up onto the wall before I could get men there to stop them, which is unfortunate, but now I'm there, we can start defending against them. Although of course the enemy have a man-to-man strength advantage. I'm using ashigaru to defend against samurai. This is bad news. On this corner things are a bit more in my favour. I have samurai fighting enemy samurai of equal strength. However, the enemy have archers outside that are firing into my section of this little melee, so they'll be generally killing more of my troops than of their own, so I'm going to be at a constant disadvantage in this bit of the fight. Outside, my katana cavalry get forced to engage with the enemy general, since the enemy general is a bit faster than my men, since my men are so tired. This fight is not going to go to my advantage because the enemy's general's bodyguards are of about equal strength to the katana cavalry. However, they're also higher morale and more fresh and able to fight, so those katana cavalry are unfortunately lost. Inside, the enemy are attacking on some new angles. You can see I've got some Yai Ashigaru being engaged by enemy katana samurai. A very unfavourable situation for me. However, I did manage to kill their captain right at the beginning, so that's good news. And there goes one of the enemy katana samurai. We are managing to kill a few of them. However, they definitely have the man-to-man strength advantage. Yari Ashigaru are very weak against katana samurai. They've got more Yari samurai who were being distracted by my fire cavalry, but decided to finally begin their assault on the castle, coming up on the east side. They're being hit by archers as they come in, so they managed to lose about a third of their troops before they actually reach the wall. However, that's not enough. 2/3 of the enemy force is still well enough to defeat the local defenders. You can see here, the enemy were now attacking parts of the wall I had no defenders on, so I had to move my bow ashigaru to start locking up the enemy into combat, just so they wouldn't take the tenshu and immediately end the battle. But of course this is a massively unfavourable battle for me. Bow ashigaru and Yari ashigaru here, fighting against enemy katana samurai. My men are going to be completely annihilated in this engagement. However, it's all I can do to delay the end of the battle, because I need more time to enact my cavalry strategies outside the castle itself to stand any hope of winning. Luckily, those strategies are just beginning to work. You can see I've already destroyed one of the enemy's generals. The enemy's main general is now coming under target by my fire cavalry. Fire cavalry exceed in fighting the general's bodyguards. You can see the enemy general here with the white headband around his head is surrounded by Takeda fire cavalry. He's in real trouble. I was hoping if I can take this guy out, the enemy would lose their morale. He gets attacked from the rear by these Takeda cavalry, and there he goes. He was knocked off his horse and crushed by it. He is dead. However, inside the castle, it's a little bit too late. The enemy are already capturing the tenshu. I've lost all of my men on the east side of the castle. On the west side, I do have men remaining. However, they're all of ashigaru quality, and you can see here they're being absolutely annihilated by these enemy katana samurai. One by one, these men are being cut down. There's no escape. They have to fight to the death in this situation. Where will they run to? However, it's hopeless for them. They don't have the training, they don't have the equipment, and they just don't have the skill to fight with these elite enemy soldiers. So very quickly, as we just saw over the last 15 seconds, my entire unit was destroyed. One man remains. Let's see how he does. Oh dear. Sword through the face and one through the chest for good measure. He's down. I get the message telling me the entire unit has been destroyed. That was my last unit, except for the survivors of the fire cavalry who are currently just running from the castle completely. About a third of the fire cavalry managed to survive all the engagements I put them through, but they were exhausted and there was no hope for them anyway. So the enemy here are going to capture the Tenshu with really an overkill amount of units just to prove their strength, and the battle is lost. Only a close defeat, which means it's a hint to us that we did manage to kill a lot of the enemy troops, and we did kill 2 enemy generals in this battle thanks to the fire cavalry, so that's good news at least. But really this castle is lost and there's still a substantial enemy force guarding it. We're going to have to work hard to take it back. The battle results screen doesn't look good, as you might expect. The entire Takeda army has been destroyed. You can see we managed to kill over 1,000 enemy troops for our 1,000 or so losses, which is good because our troops were of much inferior quality to the enemies. So the fact we managed to get 1-for-1 kills on them is actually quite successful, and of course, as I said, 2 enemy generals defeated. The Honma force has been significantly weakened by taking Etchu from us. I get a whole bunch of messages basically telling me about what just happened in case I wasn't watching. You can also see the Honma have begun raiding the Date's trade route with us. That's the port from which the Date trade all around the north side of the Japan to our trade ports on the south side of the Takeda land. So a very annoying little strategy from the Honma. They're cutting off our money and trying to capture our lands. These guys are really ambitious and they're being quite dishonourable about it as well. So I now have an opportunity, because the best time for me to attack the castle at Etchu and try and take it back is right now, because I know for sure that the enemy are only at about half strength. 1,000 of their approximately 2,000 troops were killed in the battle. Some of them will have been regenerated at that end turn sequence. However, I still know they're quite weak at the moment, so this is the best time to attack. I'm moving Nobushige up towards Hida to defend it in case they suddenly strike out and try and take Hida from us in a cheeky move, which was a risk at this stage. So Nobushige is going to keep that safe. Now Nobushige, as I just saw, is in a position to attack the castle immediately. I've exempted Noto from tax, so hopefully they won't be too angry about the fact I'm moving the entire army out. There won't be too many public order problems. And so Nobushige's force marches to engage at Etchu. Very brazen, very forward, and as I arrive I see the enemy force is actually quite a lot stronger than I thought it would be. It appears they also recruited new troops over the end turn sequence, so they now have tons of Lone Sword Ashigaru. They still have like 7 units of Yari Samurai there, and some Katana Samurai, and look at Nobushige's army. It's just a bunch of Ashigaru and a few cavalrymen. So I thought, actually there's no way this assault will work. The balance bar suggested that both sides had equal power. However, I don't think that is a correct assessment. I think we are very much inferior in this particular balance of forces. So I noticed he just about had enough movement points to get back to Noto. So that was the next best thing at this stage. Just go back to Noto and be around the castle in case the enemy decide to attack it at the end of the turn. That's pretty much the safest option I can do, even though Nobushige's force might actually lose if the Honma army decides to attack Noto, since it's not actually very powerful. So I'm going to have to work on recruiting more troops and getting some heavier troops into Nobushige's army. So here we are as the end turn sequence goes. The Honma don't move out of the castle, which is good news. However, we do get a message saying that trade has been disrupted with the Uesugi. And why is this? It's because the Uesugi have actually been destroyed completely. Our vassal clan is gone. And it turns out it was actually the Setake clan who launched a naval invasion to destroy them, but we'll have to worry about that on the next Takeda episode. That's all for this episode. Tune in next time to see the Oda's bloody conclusion in their war with the Takeda. That's next time on The Eternal Law.